You are listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. Thank you for downloading and subscribing. Coming to you virtually live from high atop the historic Raleigh building in beautiful downtown Raleigh. The NCF&B takes the listener behind the scenes to tell the stories of the people that contribute to the creation of the food and beverage community of North Carolina. And now, the misfits in the dish pit, the faces of the front. They are Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
Hello, and thank you for listening to a special episode of the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And thank you, everyone, for joining in today from wherever you are joining, as Max and I felt compelled to gather our community of food and beverage industry leaders and to get together and discuss what's going on with this fallout of COVID-19, or more popularly known as the coronavirus. And hopefully today we can see what sense we can make of this pandemic, especially as it relates to the food and beverage industry.
Yeah, due to recent government shutdowns of restaurants and bars, we'd like to use this platform to bring our industry together for the purposes of solutions, shared ideas, and community. We thoughtfully curated a list of people that we felt had a strong voice in the industry, and thank you all for your participation.
And we're going to bring you today's episode commercial free. I know as much as you love to hear Max and Matt congratulate and thank our sponsors, we're going to leave that out today. So no interruption. And we'll briefly have a roll call to announce who is on the call and what is their connection to the industry.
Yeah. Speaking of no interruptions, everyone please mute your devices unless you are ready to talk. But for this time being right now, let's start off with a quick roll call of some of those that are in the room. We have Lynn Minges of the NCRLA, along with Alyssa Barkley of the NCRLA, to go over some political and government perspective of what has recently happened. We also have Melissa Katrincic of Durham Distillery. We have Jake Wood, a chef of the soon-to-be Lewis Barbecue about to open. We have Chef Beth Littlejohn of the Players Retreat. Chris Roche of the Triangle Wine Company. This is not a sponsorship right now. Chris, you're actually here to speak. Folks like Kevin Barrett of Dram and Draught and Matthew Bettinger of Sidebar, both bars that have been closed. Buddy Bangle, former lieutenant governor candidate, also restaurateur and owner of a local sports team. Candice Herriott is Something Else About Food, the project that we worked on together last year. She is in Charleston offering some perspective out there. And then in studio, of course, both Matt and I are here, and we're with Forrest Mason, our good buddy and tech guy, but also was a line cook for a very long time, so he understands what it's like to be in the kitchens and possibly not working at this very moment. So with all that said, Lynn Minges from the NCRLA, I would like to hand it over to you to just kind of discuss where we are as a state of the state, if you will.
Wow, that's a loaded question. I'm not sure we have enough time to cover it all, but I just want to thank you guys for all you're doing out there. You're amazing. And in times like this is our industry, our community to come together to make a real change. So I'll check off a little bit of what we've been up to and how you guys have been helping us. First of all, we've been fielding questions from all across the state, from restaurateurs who are trying to understand what's happening, when's it going to happen, what can we do, what can't we do, outside seating, can we serve alcohol, can we negotiate takeout and delivery and drive-thrus. And so we've been fielding, literally thousands and thousands of questions over the past 5 days. At the same time, we've been advocating and actively in conversations almost hourly with the governor's office, with the North Carolina Department of Public Health, with the North Carolina ABC Commission, with the North Carolina Department of Revenue, trying to advocate on your behalf and say, look, we need relief, and we need relief now. So we've been doing that. At the same time, we've been working the federal angle, because there's a lot of federal legislation, relief packages coming down. And if we don't get our word in now, they passed one last night that still needs some work. But, there's a sense of urgency in making our voices heard. To that end, I'd like to say that there are 4,500 North Carolina hospitality workers and owners who have called policymakers. We're tracking that actively. It is incredible the kind of response we're getting, to call and put the pressure on them. You don't have to even tell them what to do. Just tell them to get their butts together and let's get this thing fixed. And we need relief, and we need it now. We have put together a list of policy requests, potential things that could go into a relief package. And as we're speaking, that is going over to Speaker Moore, who we've been in conversation with, President Pro Tem Berger, and to the governor. It's things like, hey, let us keep our sales tax right now. Let us keep our meals tax, occupancy tax. Let us don't forgive us our property tax. Right now, we need cash up front to operate, and we're making that as clear as we possibly can. And we're getting some good results on that. So I think you're going to see some pretty good relief on the kinds of things that allow you to keep cash now, that waive penalties and payments. Yeah, you're going to have to remit that tax eventually, but maybe it can give you some cash flow now until relief comes. We have been working a lot with the media on these back-to-back interviews, just trying to manage the message so the general public understands the need for urgency, that we're hurting and we need help now, and to keep that pressure on policymakers. So we're running a media, blitz just to try to frame that messaging. And then, finally, and not to be overlooked, we're working along with many of you guys on philanthropic efforts, trying to create funds and work with other nonprofits to speed relief to hospitality workers. You guys know better than anybody that this is going to have devastating impacts on, the workforce that really is our hospitality industry. You guys serve great food, but it's the people who make this thing happen every day. And my heart bleeds for them. And I've just heard story after story, like you all have, about the impacts of lives and families that are being changed, maybe forever. And we got to step up and help. So happy to share more.
Well, thank you, Lynn, for framing that out for us, because I think we kind of need to know what our biggest steps are. I know that a lot of conversation has been about the owners of these establishments that are now, forcefully closed. But I do want to take a quick moment at the top, because I think a lot of our servers and bartenders and staff and line cooks might be listening in right now as to what the heck can we do immediately? Lynn, we were on a conference call last night, and you had mentioned that unemployment is being activated immediately without restriction, and that the government themselves will be issuing the finances to people that apply for unemployment immediately at the top, without having to go through the red tape of going through their employer and such. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure, absolutely. So we worked very closely with Governor Cooper on development waivers of unemployment insurance. So he has put together what he considers to be the most liberal thing he can do within his purview. And so he's eliminated from traditional unemployment the following. But let me just make this clear that workers who have been laid off or their hours reduced, you can apply for unemployment insurance right now. I talked to the Department of Commerce Secretary Tony Copeland. They're up and ready to run. I'm sure they're getting high call volumes, but they're fielding about 3 times more unemployment applications today than they were 3 weeks ago. So go ahead and get folks in the queue to do that. There's information on our website about how to access that. There's videos on how to do it. Hopefully folks don't need that, but go ahead and apply immediately. And so here's what happens. There is no more 1 week waiting period. That is, that's been waived. You do not have to demonstrate that you are able and willing to work. You do not have to be actively seeking work. That usually is a part of unemployment insurance. And you do not have to demonstrate that there's a lack of work requirement. Just apply for it, and those dollars are going to come. There are some, caps. I mean, it's not full employment, but there is unemployment insurance that will come to you. And let me also make this clear: that will be funded by the government, and there will be no allocation charges to employers' accounts. So we know small businesses, restaurants can't afford that. We know that. So the burden for this will come from state governments funded by the feds. So get out and do that. And then there's one more piece that happened late last night, and that was released at the federal level. More to come on that. I'm still just speaking from notes I took on a phone recently, but that we should be rolling that out soon. And it's that Congress passed a new law last night expanding sick leave and family medical leave for employees of companies with fewer than 500 employees, which is obviously most of ours. And that bill requires that companies give full-time employees 80 hours of paid sick leave, and also provide part-time employees with some paid sick leave. It also, and that is even if you're staying home because you've got a kid who can't go to school. I mean, it's pretty liberal. There are caps on the payouts, $511 a day for employees with the virus or in quarantine, and $200 per day for employees caring for someone with the virus. The bill also provides private companies with fewer than 500 employees to pay workers for most of the 12 weeks of leave that they're allowed under the Family Medical Leave Act. That pay is capped at $200 a day, but employers will be fully reimbursed. So more to come on the how, but that is the what got passed. So, the good news is for our employees, they're going to get paid. I mean, something. It's not what it should be, but they're going to get some money coming from the federal and state government in the form of Unemployment, Family Medical Leave Act funds. And to the extent possible, that burden is going to be borne by the government and not by the employers who are equally hurting right now.
That's great.
A lot of moving parts.
2 questions for that, Lynn. First of all, what about you say part-time employees or now obviously reduced hours, so waiters, bartenders that are maybe helping their establishment out just by doing a couple of hours to help out the curbside or takeout or delivery. They're obviously taking a loss on their income. Can they still get some unemployment as well?
That is my understanding. I do believe so. I mean, the goal is to not separate employees. And so I think, what we've made loud and clear to government officials is that let's don't penalize, the businesses who are trying to keep their workers. I mean, they've got less staff. Maybe they're doing takeout, delivery, that kind of thing. They're working on limited hours, but let's make sure we're keeping them employed and not penalizing them for working. So I think you'll see that as a part of it, that they will be compensated for the reduced hours.
Do we know with obviously tipped employees with it would be more stated income? How are we basing what their revenue would get if they're trying to get a check? I mean, is it based off of the tips that they've been filing up to date?
Yeah, I would assume so. So I think that's the challenge that some folks are going to have. It will be reduced. It will be obviously based on whatever you can prove were your wages. So there'd have to be some sort of proof paycheck, IRS filings you've done before, something of that nature. I'm not sure the process for that, but clearly they can't reimburse you for something you can't document that was your wages.
Yeah, public service announcement for
that.
Claiming your tips. This is kind of a reason why, because we as a government or whatever need to know how much people are making. Granted, they want to tip, they want to tax you on it, but this is the protection right here, is we actually know how much you are making. So in times of crisis, we can pay you back. Let's open it up a little bit to some of the people that are in this room. Now, unfortunately, I don't have video on everyone, so I can't tell if anyone specifically is chiming in or trying to speak. So if that is the case, take your mic off right now if you want to come in and mention something. I know we want to talk about some of the solutions that we can do right now, like the takeout, the delivery, the dining on patios. What does it mean to have alcohol service and all that?
Let's clarify one thing before I want to, in Executive Order 118, which is what Governor Cooper put out on Tuesday now, it has an end date as of now. It has a March 31st end date. How realistic is that, and do we think that is going to be actual?
No way that's actual. It's going to be way longer than that, I think.
That's Beth Littlejohn.
Lynn, what are you hearing on that?
I do think that, but also I just don't think anybody really knows, but I think based on a lot of what we're hearing, it doesn't look like that is going to be the actual end date.
So, but
I agree with Beth. I mean, the executive order does say in March 31st or until it's rescinded. So, yet to be seen. You guys are seeing the national news reports like everybody else. But it doesn't sound like this thing's going to be over anytime soon.
So we have to make this economy work, right? We can't just result in certain things. I was just having this conversation about we're sitting at home cooking and providing great meals for our families, and like this byproduct of the shutdown means that we're having a lot of great family time and everyone's having a good time out here. But of course the restaurants lose because we're not going to restaurants necessarily to buy food. We're going there for an experience. And so by solely just getting takeout isn't really the cure-all to this whole thing, because in effect we could maybe just make food at home. So we have to come up with clever ways and interesting ways that are going to force us to get out there and spend money back into the economy and help inject, rather than just be donation based and all, because that feels nice and great at the beginning, but we need to have practices that are going to utilize these spaces. So is there anyone out there with a business, a chef owner, bar owner somewhere, that has seen any type of positivity from the takeout model, the curbside model?
At PR, we've been looking. We haven't started it yet, as you know. Again, this is Beth Littlejohn Players Retreat. We ended up closing a little bit before the governor put on the mandate because we pretty much anticipated it coming, and we wanted to, just stop where we were and kind of regroup and figure out what the best next step was. And we're hopefully going to be going to doing takeout and delivery starting on Friday at PR. It'll be with a much more limited menu, obviously. I think, the challenge is figuring out how you can continue to pay some people at the most minimal cost. The menu cost, you need to be as low. It's like just trying to keep your overhead as low as possible so that you have something coming in to start paying some stuff, And I've heard really good feedback from people who I know are doing it, that they're getting good business because, not people don't love to cook at home as much. That's why we're all so popular in most of the time, right? And so I think having the ability to get the cooking, the food we do is about nostalgia in a lot of ways. So like they can bring the nostalgia home, even though if they're not going to get the full experience, they can still bring the flavors home. And I think that's going to put a lot of people at ease because that's what eases people during crises is nostalgia and things like that. So we're hoping that the takeout will be helpful. That's my takeaway.
Anybody else seeing success or finding it frustrating and maybe the other side of it, that it's not worth it so far?
I'm not sure if we're finding success. This is Kevin from Draught, by the way. But our plan for our downtown Raleigh location is to turn it into a little grocery shop. I think we're in a little bit of a food desert down there. And I think to Beth's point, we're trying to figure out a way to keep paying people and to maybe help people out a little bit. We're trying to get basic necessities and, have a reasonable markup so that we can keep the lights on and get our employees some money during this tough time. I'll give you an update. It starts tomorrow.
Cool. Nice. So that means like you're opening up whatever you had left in your kitchens and kind of using that as a grocery mart?
Yeah, we have, we'll sell beer and wine. Of course, we're allowed to do that. And then we have a decent stock of dry goods. We've got some canned goods. And I think, for people in the Boylan neighborhood, especially, that might be super convenient for them. We're only going to let a few people in at a time. We're going to try to be super responsible and safe about it and hopefully help the neighborhood and get a little money in our employees' pockets while they're figuring out all this unemployment paperwork.
Yep. Brian, Chef Brian Hudson, you're with Sysco Foods, one of the largest companies out that's servicing the community. And you had mentioned, we text back and forth about an idea that had made sense to you. Would you care to speak on that a little bit?
Sure. So, Chef was just talking about the food desert, and, we had plans that were dashed over the weekend as well. My wife and I had a kid-free weekend plan to go to Nashville to see a show and, come back and, then have a nice dinner with the kids on Monday. That did not work. So we went down to the beach for a couple days and heard about all these closings. And so we went to shop at the grocery store there because it wasn't tourist season yet. So, however, everything was wiped out, bread. 90% of the eggs that were left over had the cracked ones in there and all that stuff too. So, then coming back, normally I'm traveling from Burlington to the coast, working in kitchens and helping folks come up with ideas or solutions, and whether it's product related or labor, whatnot. But we're grounded too. I'm not allowed to really go into restaurants to, as you heighten the chances of bringing that back to, say the warehouse or something. And, we service our warehouse is based out of Selma. We service from Burlington to the coast, but what crossed my mind is when the products that restaurants have on their shelves, if you can't have the labor, why not turn, something into almost like a retail? Mart. We have plenty of sliced breads, and so do other suppliers. This is not a competition thing at this point. This is a all hands on deck to feed the public and get food from wherever that source is, to feed
and I
families.
think it's important to not break the system and break the economy completely to just giving things out for free and just, a stopgap. I think we have to learn to adjust and consider this might be a while. So if that's the case, let's make it healthy. Let's make it where we're buying food, we're selling food, we're earning some money, and it's not completely crippling our business for the time being. We're just learning to adjust. Kristin Baughman of Tabletop Media, you had mentioned you had a perspective. You represent a lot of restaurants in the community, but you yourself also are from a small town in Warrenton. How is that working out right now?
Yeah, so I definitely think that you hit the money when you said you just have to learn to adapt. And I know for most of our clients, we've been working with them to pretty much like within hours launch online delivery on their websites. And so we've been able to do like some of their toast systems, cake, some of their POS. And then also we've built like makeshift delivery systems via Squarespace. Some of our clients are on that web platform. So I feel like that's been doing okay. I actually get to see the orders come in. So for one of our clients, Caroline, for instance, they're getting like maybe around 20 orders online a day. And then I'm not sure how many people are actually calling in, but it's better than nothing. And also, I know Teddy Diggs is on the call too, and he might be someone that we might want to call on to chat a little bit more about deliveries going for him, because he's one of the only clients I know that's doing delivery in the Carborough Chapel Hill area. So I think that might be kind of interesting to hear. And as far as the small town perspective, it's been quite interesting because a few of our clients up here in Warrenton, it's about an hour north of Raleigh, they have not been seeing pretty much anybody calling in and any like takeout or whatnot. I know one of our clients only had 5 people come in yesterday, so it's just hurting them to stay open.
Yeah, that's not a viable model at this point. Teddy Diggs, Coronado Pizza, we love what you're doing out there, but what are you doing right now?
Yeah, we switched to the delivery and takeout this week, and it's definitely not sustainable. It doesn't, at this point, it's not even sustainable really to help with payroll. We are going to be under at this rate. And so my concern is that we're putting significant effort into keeping staff as best we can, putting significant effort. We had to lay off staff, of course. The staff we are keeping, we did so based off of projected delivery and takeout sales. And it's just not going to be enough to sustain the labor. So we're going to end up losing labor. So then we're going to be moving to delivery and takeout, really just so that I can have some sort of income to feed my family. And I don't think that we can look at delivery and takeout as a sustainable long-term option. I think it's more of a day-to-day, maybe a week-to-week option. There has to be some sort of overarching aid coming in somewhere from either state or federal level government to make anything at this point sustainable.
So I have a question about that, and this question is for Lynn. Lynn, if a business is operating right now and doing some revenue of delivery and takeout, is that going to affect when and if some sort of relief package comes in? Does that factor into how much of a percentage that you get back?
I don't think so. I mean, I think businesses are going to have to demonstrate, loss to be eligible for some funding, but obviously that's not going to be hard for any of you guys. I was just going to jump in on some of the ideas that you all have with delivery and takeout. I just want to make a couple points. I think it's really helpful if we all start singing this song. I have learned through all this that 50% of the food consumed in North Carolina is consumed through restaurants and food service establishments. 50%. And so you guys are playing a vital role in the food supply chain to, the 10 million people who live in our state. And we need to keep saying that every time we can talk to a public official. So, we know the grocery store shelves are empty. At some point, people are going to be even concerned about going to the grocery stores. I think there's a role for us to play. Sysco's trucks are rolling, U.S. Foods trucks are rolling, Cheney Brothers rolling. Let's keep the food coming in, and maybe you guys shift to a model that's not your regular menu, but trays of lasagna. I mean, what mom at home cooped up with her kids wouldn't go pick up a tray of lasagna or tacos for 10. I mean, maybe it's kind of a shift to that bulk model where you're picking up a tray, a casserole, something like that. Because I think we're going to play an important role in feeding our citizens. I mean, this is not just about, it is about the businesses and your employees, but government officials need to be looking to you guys to help solve a pretty big problem that they're going to be facing, real fast.
This is Beth Littlejohn again. One of the things that we're going to be offering once we do the takeout and stuff is we're doing quarts and pints of like Brunswick stew and Mimi and chili and quarts of Mimi's, and all of that stuff can be frozen really easily. And some of it we're actually already freezing, and we're serving it like cold, so like people can bring it home. And we're trying to think about, like Lynn said, things like that are, they can pop in the freezer or pop out and have it quickly and have a good meal for the family. And so we're definitely thinking about those sorts of models when we're thinking about takeout delivery.
Brian Hudson, you can add to that same comment from Sysco Foods.
Along that same note, I mean, the general public would be, let me backtrack. Labor, even before this, has been an issue. Knowledgeable labor, I should say. I mean, some of us went to school. Some of us went to hard knocks school to learn how to cook. And the amount of products that, because of the labor shortage and whatnot that are out there, it's pretty incredible. I mean, you can get a box of roasted corn if you want. You don't have to pay somebody to potentially burn that and redo it to make a corn salsa or something, just as an example. Heat and bag macaroni and cheese. I mean, these kinds of things that are out there in all of our suppliers can now be something that the general public might want to use. You throw a pot of water on and you drop some chilled mashed potatoes that are in a bag and you're ready to go.
Right, because our chefs
so to Beth's point, these are perfect solutions that were designed for restaurants. And now you've got, these like myself, my wife, we're kind of trapped at the house and having to feed 2 kids and then also ourselves. And, coming up with these ideas, it's really helpful, I think.
So in studio here, we have Forrest Mason, and you were mentioning, Forrest, something similar along this line that's happening in Carborough. If you want to talk to that as well.
Yeah, another model that we're seeing people experiment with is like a CSA type model with pickups, I think, on Saturday, Tuesday, and Thursday.
This is where?
This is in Carborough. Carborough United is what they're working with. I think they have a website purchased, but I don't think they have it up yet. A lot of it's still in process. But the idea is it would be a $50 box that would feed 4 people. And the customers would show up in a line, and then they would pop their trunk and have some sort of container in there that someone could then put food into. And it would be a mixture. Some of the boxes would be prepared foods from restaurants, and others would be combinations of ingredients and proteins from local farmers and producers that would have a complete meal that you could either cook, like take home and cook yourself, or have it prepared for people who aren't as into the cooking idea. But it would be a way to sort of pool resources from local restaurants and local farmers and producers into like a unified source, so that people could kind of spend a flat rate and get something they could expect. And I think you can also do like a pay it forward type model. You can spend more than $50 on your box, and then ultimately, hopefully, have enough dollars combined to have a donation box, I think is the general thought process right now.
Yeah. I know we just had David from Offline Media. Hello, David. I'm putting you on the spot over here, but I saw you just jump on.
Hey, Max. How you doing?
Good. I know that you had you had texted or you'd emailed a couple things that Offline's doing. You have a pretty rich and large mailing list, so you have a lot of influence and a platform there too. Care to explain what you guys are doing?
Yeah, happy to. For those of you that aren't familiar with Offline, we had a media publication here in the Triangle, and have now switched over to a subscription service. But as Max said, we do have a pretty large platform and following. And I mean, I think to sum it up generally, I mean, we just want to be helpful. You know, we're not directly in the hospitality industry, but we want to help however we can. And I think, I wanted to jump on here because I want to listen and I want to find out how we can be the most helpful. In terms of things that we are doing right now for our subscription service, we have a product called Handpicked Offers, and we've just paused that product entirely, and we've moved all of our resources over to something called Takeout for the Triangle. And we have about 4,000 subscribers Triangle-wide, and we have a list of right now about 40 restaurant partners that we were working with through our Offers product. And what we're doing is encouraging our members to go out and spend money, face value, no discounts, anything like that, with any of these 40 partners. So that could be buying a gift card, that could be doing takeout, that could be curbside, literally anything that involves money transferring from their bank account to that restaurant. And then they text us a picture of their receipt, and they send us their member ID number, and we're crediting $5 off of a future membership payment for that member. And we're going to be doing that for as long as COVID lasts. We're hoping that that's just going to encourage a lot of people to get out and spend money, and for us to promote takeout and just promote a lot of the innovation that we're seeing. We're seeing so much innovation for how people are doing curbside, doing takeout, changing their kitchens around, and we want to be an amplifier for that. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, and I'm just here to listen and get feedback on that and anything else that we can do to help. We also do have the media list. It's about 60,000 emails here in the Triangle of people that have subscribed to our media audience, and we're happy to use that list to get the word out about anything that seems relevant.
That's great. Thanks a lot, David. And when we all can go out again, I'm sure offline will tell us where to go. Trish, Wytek, you have recently actually been on the podcast. You represent social media for a lot of large restaurants, the Urban Food Group, Angus Barn. I'm sure people have probably heard of that one. But you also used to work in pharma. You have a great background in some of this. Trish, will you speak to a specific point about accuracy online?
Sure. So during this time, I know everybody's distracted by what's going on a day-to-day basis, but it's important that you are consistently communicating with your guests via your social media platforms. And on the flip side, that you are seeing what people are saying about you. And I'll give you an example. Winston's Grill actually made the call similar to like what Beth was saying and closed before the governor closed the dining rooms. There were posts that were done about takeout, but now what we're seeing is people are grabbing that and they're sharing it and telling people that they're open, and they keep getting calls and requests about coming to get takeout food, but yet they've communicated that they're closed. So this is a really important time to also see what's being communicated about your brand online and making sure it's accurate.
Yeah, like make sure people know that you're open,
yeah,
and that you can do this. Russell, I don't want to put you on the spot because I didn't text you in advance, but Russell Solovay, you are regional manager for Sysco Foods. I think it's important to have people that are in these industries speak at this point because you have a lot of food in your warehouses. If you would be so kind, I know you would express some interest via email, but if you would answer what some programs that Sysco is doing at this moment.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Look, currently, we're working with a lot of restaurants, civic organizations, churches, retirement homes right now, and changing really what they're purchasing and making them more into markets. And just some of them are doing curbside, some of them are prepping set packages and just having them in bags ready to go. We were at Archer Lodge yesterday, building all these bags. And Apex Lions Club today is working with Western Wake Crisis Ministries to set up these programs. So what we're doing is we're putting together a list of products that are healthy, products that are shelf stable, and helping the restaurants and these other organizations change into what may be for the foreseeable future, what the industry needs. we're doing our best we can to make sure that the product keeps flowing. We just got off a conference call, so I was late to this. We still see plenty of product coming into our buildings, and we're going to do the best to service the community.
We appreciate that. I want to also bring up, I believe, Chris Roche of the Triangle Wine Company. This is not a commercial segment, although if you listen to our show, you've heard us mention Triangle Wine Company very often. Chris, are you on the line?
I am. Yeah. Hi.
Hey, good friend of the show, great sponsor of the show. But for those that don't know what he does, Chris runs the Triangle Wine Company. You have multiple locations. You sell beer and wine and other supplies. But you've had a really interesting take on a lot of this. I'd like to get the perspective of somebody that's selling retail in general and what you guys can do in your plan at this point.
Sure. I mean, the plan changes from day to day, obviously, as with everybody, because it's a fluid situation. First, I want to be, thankful that we are in a slightly better situation than, our brothers and sisters in the bar and restaurant business. It's a tough situation, but, you guys have it tougher, and I'm well aware of that. I will say having been in contact with different people at the wholesale level, their business is actually doing okay right now. They're pumping out product, but it's pretty much all to the grocery store chains because that's the customers are rushing to get food and kind of grabbing product from there. I'm thankful my regular customers are. It's amazing, and it makes me feel good, and I'm sure all the other bottle shops and wine stores kind of are in a similar situation where regular customers coming in wanting to make sure they spend their money with local business and just seeing how we're doing, and so I'm very, very thankful to our customers for that. It means a lot to me and obviously to the staff I've got on. Haven't had to I've had to trim some hours, and with guidance from Andy from the North Carolina Retail Merchants Association as far as the unemployment situation. Going to have to make some hard choices pretty much today on who to let go, temporarily, to make sure that all my people are in the best possible situation to get whatever benefit they can from the government, and so I can still pay some of the some of my other guys that I'm able to keep on.
Yeah.
As I told you, as I talked to you early, Max, I stopped into one of the grocery stores this morning, the chains, and it was busy. It was interesting to see kind of how the public was reacting, and it's a bizarre world, I guess. But what you seemed we were going to ask a question.
Oh, I was going to lighten the mood for a second because Matthew Weiss, always the consummate optimist, had a pretty awesome idea. Matt?
Well, I have a couple ideas that I'll throw out there because I want to start talking more about solutions and our brainstorming ideas about how we can stimulate income. And one of the ideas I thought is a throwback. And I thought, and Lynn, you can speak to this, of whether this would even be allowed, but remember the old drive-in movie theaters? So would it be safe if everybody was in their car and we had some sort of movie or entertainment, but we also had a food establishment, and this could be rotated in a shared income or revenue model where one restaurant or one food establishment was providing the food each night, and then it would give us a sense of community. But theoretically, I think we'd be safe because we'd all be in our cars, and maybe it would just be one like old school delivery. They don't have to wear roller skates in this point.
Matt, are you saying separate but equal?
I don't think I'm saying that. I think I'm saying definitely separate. I don't know, Lynn, would that even be a possibility legally?
I think it would. I think they're, receptive to all kinds of creative ideas. I think if you just think about it, the only thing that really is restricted is that mass gathering where people are in body-to-body contact 6 feet apart, So anything that can remove that is A-okay. In my interpretation, food trucks are okay. Food trucks, catering, all that A-okay.
Right.
So brilliant idea. I love it. You guys are the most creative people I know, and it's time to get to work and let's have some fun.
The other idea I had, I think food trucks is touchy because people then have to come up. So the food trucks would have to still do some sort of delivery because you don't want to create lines and stuff like that because that doesn't help social distancing. But the other idea I had for chefs and restaurants, and I've offered this a lot to my retail accounts, is we are in the 21st century, so virtual tastings, but how do we monetize that? Well, so for restaurants specifically, how about chef demos? And like Forrest said, so they come to the restaurant or they get delivery and you have a prepared ingredients or meal, and then if they buy that, they get a link into a live stream, whether it be a Google Hangout or whatever your preferred technology is, a Zoom, like we're doing, and then they could follow along and cook the recipes at home. But it's already provided revenue for you because they've purchased the ingredients. And sure, maybe you could charge something if they're really into it to live stream. But also that works for retailers or wine people. If they were to say, let's buy a 6-pack, well, then they get a guided sommelier tasting or winemaker tasting, and we could literally do that anywhere in the world for the winemakers to come in. You buy the 6-pack and you get a link into this sommelier or winemaker guided tasting. So that's just a couple of ideas about how to stream up business and revenue during these, weird and crazy times. But please.
David from Offline Media just texted and said that V Pizza told us yesterday they're going to be doing a drive-in movie. So maybe we can
They stole my idea.
Yeah,
they must be on this.
We've been trying to keep tabs on this, y'all. Like, across all of our partners, just what are people doing to be creative? And yeah, V Pizza, it's a good idea. V Pizza is going to be launching the drive-in movies. Flying Biscuits got orange furniture that they've laid out all over their parking lot since no one's parking there, where people can sit and wait while they do their curbside pickup. They've got a quarantine brunch menu item that they're selling to go, where you can get orange juice, champagne, a big brunch for $4. So we're just seeing a lot of creativity, people trying to drive revenue in lots of different ways. And we're trying to just keep up with that. Our team is going out and trying all of it and then storing it on our Instagram account just to help get the word out about the creativity that we're seeing.
I think what's important to realize here is, I was mentioning this to my wife and friends last night, is if we're doing whatever we're doing for the next 8, 10, 12 weeks, let's just say, what we're doing is we're building a pattern to create something new. And so they always say if you're going to quit smoking cigarettes, it takes, a few weeks to of the pattern, and you break that cycle, and then now it's not hard any longer. Well, we are going to be forced to do something new, but what's going to happen is we're going to train ourselves that this type of social distancing can work. And so I think we really need to just jump into it, not go against it, and just really come up with solutions, because this ain't going anywhere. And then once there's a moment where everything is free and we can all be social again, well, all of those introverts that liked it the way it was right now can keep going with that model. And I think that's not a bad thing. I think it's just we're forcing ourselves to evolve into a different model, but it's making us all kind of reestablish what we do and how we do things. So I think we should keep thinking forward about ways that we can make a new delivery model, a new entertainment model, because in the end, the food and beverage industry is entertainment in some form or another. And whether it's Matt telling you what a wine tastes like, or Chef Jake Wood telling you how this technique of cooking is, whatever it may be, we have to utilize these resources as much as possible to propagate the future, to keep going beyond. Chris from Triangle Wine Company. Yep.
What Matt was talking about with the drive-in theater and V's Pizza, whoever's doing it, just want to reiterate to make sure that any type of on-premise consumption at all, that won't work, because either the business will be in violation of the executive order, or the customers will be in violation of open container laws in public. So it'll work for food, but at this exact moment, it won't work for booze.
Don't you think, Lynn, we can get that relaxed during this time? I mean, somebody has to enforce that also, right?
We are working on it. So we got, a lot of people who want to be in charge right now. We got the governor who's trying to work with us to make that happen. We got ABC who's cracking down and trying to limit alcohol sales. We got Department of Public Health. We're trying to mediate between all those.
Their demo.
But it's on our list of asks. We're begging, so we'll keep trying.
Wait, why ABC is trying to limit alcohol sales? You mean on premise, obviously?
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Takeout. Takeout's obviously okay. You can walk into a bottle shop, wine shop, take it to go, but they're trying to. It seems that they're limiting mixed drink service.
Gotcha.
More to come. We're on it. We're looking for some legal guidance. Stay tuned. And I was going to say, anybody who wants to keep track of what we're doing you can go to our website, NCRLA.org. We're giving updates hourly. I think we just posted one that says that the North Carolina Department of Revenue is waiving all tax collections and receipts. So I know some of you guys have a deadline tomorrow. You can keep that money for now and postpone it. So, they're waiving all those kind of penalties and tax deadlines through, I don't have the date in front of me, but it's for some extended period of time. So check that out. And
that's a good segue into Max mentioned, I think earlier and a couple days ago, about how we're all in this together. So the realtors, the landlords, they all need the income too. And if you as business owners are not making that money and can't afford that, it's not like somebody else at this point can come right in and swoop it up. So is there any talk about some mandate to postpone, let's say, lease agreements and electric bills, etc.?
There is, as we've been speaking, Duke Energy is reaching out to me. They're going to roll out an announcement about that. But what we're hearing and what I'm sharing with folks is call your landlord now. A lot of our members are being able to negotiate extensions on a lease. So, forgive me payments for this month, next month, just tack it on to the end of my lease. Same thing with loan payments, tack it on. But the time to have those conversations are now and not when the bills due. Same thing with utilities. And yes, we are asking for waivers so that people can't be, evicted or whatever. So, keep the cash, and we're working hard to deal with it on the back end.
That's good to hear.
Hey, we've got Candice. Candy, we've talked with you before. We did a podcast together about Nashville, actually, but you're down there in Charleston. Many of you know her as a CHS food writer or something else about food, but you're in Charleston, like one of the food meccas of the world. You care to lend a little insight as to maybe anything positive that's happening down there and what we might be able to take and use up here?
Well, thanks for having me on this call. I think this is such a very important conversation that needs to happen, because I think, as we've just even been discussing on this call, the brainstorming is what's really happening right now. Everybody that's in the industry or around the industry really trying to come together and be like, what about this idea? What about that? How can we make food trucks more accessible when there's ordinance situations? Or how do we do food carts? Or, there's so many different moving factors, and everything is changing so quickly. And so one of the ideas that I loved hearing the most is what Forrest said earlier. I specialize in farm to fork experiences, and I represent a lot of chefs and farmers throughout the country. And, I think that this culmination of trying to figure out, every area is going to be so specific. So what works as a model in Charleston isn't going to maybe necessarily work as the same model across the state, in the western part of the state, or what works in South Carolina sometimes isn't going to work in North Carolina. And so I think individual communities really coming together and looking at what are the resources that they have available to them, whether it's the fishing industry, farming, what they actually have in their area, and who can help to assimilate that. And, right now, almost immediately, overnight, an entire industry just went out of work. All of these restaurants, their staff. There are several people here that are trying to do the takeout and delivery. They've tried to get it up and going right away. But unfortunately, more of the restaurants that I work with than not, actually, to be honest, every single restaurant I work with has evaluated it. And from a financial perspective, they can't make the numbers work. They want to keep their staff employed. But unfortunately, it's a numbers game. And if you're going to be losing money on trying to produce something that's supposed to be helping your employees, you've got to make those hard calls. And so Forrest's idea of what's happening up there with the CSA pick up and go, I think is one of the best things that I've heard so far. And I think the more conversations that we have like this, the more productive and more of a viable solution each community is going to be able to come up with on their own. But I do think it's extremely important for, people within each of their states, municipalities to, kind of come together within each of their cities and try to figure out what are some of these laws and ordinances and rules that maybe can we try to figure out a way to get relaxed or changed for this ever-evolving situation.
Thank you. Yes. Solutions, innovation, these type of things are what we need right now. And that's why I want to speak with Melissa Katrincic of Durham Distillery, Conniption Gin, delicious stuff. But Melissa, you were right on the front lines when all this happened. You and your husband, Lee, started working to find a solution. Please tell us what you're doing over there at Durham Distillery.
Sure. Well, it's constantly evolving. I'll be fully transparent with you all that it's taking a significantly huge pivot in the last basically 48 hours. So, but I'll just talk to what we're doing still for the F&B community. You absolutely still can contact us. Contact Aaron at durhamdistillery.com to set up an appointment to go ahead and you pick up a donation of up to 2 liters of sanitizing solution that is 70% ethanol and water. That allows you to then, at your establishments, and even with curbside pickup, we see this is really, I think, still critical. You can spray down or wipe down high-touch areas. So 70% is the World Health Organization and CDC recommendation for killing this virus. That is the sweet spot of that percentage of alcohol. So that will continue. We do have another order of ethanol that's being shipped from Kentucky. We actually just got to the front of the line on that today. There's over 400 orders that they're processing right now. So you can kind of see what's happening across the country. On a larger scale, I'm on the task force with the American Craft Spirits Association to work with that organization to set standards and guidelines for distilleries all across the country so that we can come up with guidelines from the FDA as well as the federal TTB to ensure compliance and to ensure that what we're doing is really helpful and valid for their local communities. At this point, we are trying to get the Hill to give us some emergency management funds so that we can cover costs. Obviously, I don't think that we're looking to make any money off of this as an industry. This is really, sort of a call to arms and what can we do that's going to really be helpful and an immediate impact. Locally, let's talk about that. So we have had, the state has now reached out to us. We are pivoting from we're pivoting from the spray only to gel hand sanitizer. But that will not be for consumers. That is going to be for first responders. It's going to be for the states. It's going to be for state troopers. It's going to be for our police, our EMS. So the team, we're a bit overwhelmed. In all honesty, we're trying to take it day by day. But, we feel very confident that we're going to help get this whole local community through this crisis.
Melissa, do you need help?
I don't know. I think that's
I'm sure there are a lot of people that would,
right now, right?
You could pay us in gin.
I think, thank God we make gin because I'm having martinis every night right now.
Melissa's drunk right now. Everything she's saying is, high touch areas. You said that earlier. I'm just thinking that's going to be my new fantasy football name when and if the NFL actually starts in the fall. We're just hoping.
That's right. Yeah, this is really uncharted territory, but. Thank goodness that we've got the means to do this and to do this quick pivot. And, it's really just, I have no idea how long we're going to need to do it. But, the whole team has really rallied. So, unfortunately, we've had to furlough our front of house and we had to furlough our brand ambassadors that are across different metro areas up and down the Eastern Seaboard. That's really, sad in this as well. But, I think if we can continue to keep the lights on, as it were, with this kind of change in production, and it really is valuable to the first responders, then we're all in.
Well, Melissa, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Again, to everybody, too. Before we get out of here, I do want to mention one of our big, strong leaders of the community, Miss Ashley Christensen, has released with a group of people. They've come together to talk about the Triangle Restaurant Workers. Am I saying this right? Oh my God! The Triangle Restaurant Relief Fund for staff, and that's being processed through with the Frankie Lemon School. They're doing a lot to basically create a beacon so people can donate and start sharing any funds they can to help employees immediately. Because as we just said, Candice just said, all of a sudden one day we just eliminated a major part of our workforce. And so if you have the potential to donate, that is a great place to go. It's going to go directly to the employees in your local community, so we can keep businesses open and keep people clothed, fed, and sheltered, which is the most
Max,
important.
they've already had 3,200 applicants.
Wow. Applicants. So 3,200 people have already jumped in to get assistance, as they should. That's crazy, and that was just announced yesterday. So obviously there is a huge need for that and a pull for that, so we can do what we can. But again, my message is still, we have to create something where our economy is not reliant solely on the generosity of others. We have to figure out a way to be innovative and create something next level. Matt?
Yeah. No, there's not one answer. I think relief funds like this, we're going to obviously continue to lobby the government. Hopefully more federal funding comes in. And I'll just, as we wrap up here, hopefully there's some positivity out there. I know a lot of people are thinking this is doomsday and this is going to go on for a long time. But if you look at China, where this whole thing started, they are starting to get back to work right now. And the conversation I had with Chris Roche earlier this week, if we are flattening the curve now and we look at what the end result of after this week is, it's a crucial week, and the mortality rate starts to even dwindle as more cases come on board and we have more awareness, the sooner we will come to an end. So with that said, for those of you out there, please continue to eat and drink merrily.
Thanks for listening to the NCFB podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.